I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We have a couple different things. I'm going to move things around on the agenda. We have the approval of the consent agenda, and then completion of records, and then early public comment session where Mr. Linneberry from Platypus may come to speak again. But item number 11, Old Community Business Community Partner Program, I'm going to go ahead and move that to right after the early public comment session, because I know some people are here specifically to listen to find out what we've decided on awarding for those grants. So you don't have to sit through the entire meeting. Thank you, Polly.
But you're welcome to.
Yes, you're very welcome to, but if the intent was just to find out the results of that, I'll move that up to, that'll become item number 6. And I see Mr. Linneberry's here, so thank you. So we're going to go ahead and do, though, the approval of consent agenda, then completion of records, and then we'll do early public comment session with Mr. Linneberry. So, approval of consent agenda. Have you done your vouchers? Okay. And so do I have a motion, or do you?
Yes, I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to know what expenditures were out of the ordinary on the vouchers, please.
I'll highlight 3. We have with Rodlands, with the CRTC, redoing the insides of the building. We issued a check for $850,800 and change towards that. We're about 64% done in that contract. We cut a check to the attorney for the Cape Cod cleanup in the amount of about $76,000, and I believe my understanding is that's still being covered under our insurance. Reimbursed.
On the Cape Cod site, no, but we've been in mediation and are still working toward a settlement with the PLPs.
And that's part of the mediation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we also cut an additional check of about $51,000 to CRTC for the economic development, and that's about 75% complete for the $615 for the year.
Thank you.
Okay, we had, during the work session, talked about the minutes of April 4th, 2016, and noted just a few typos. Is it your intent just to approve it with those typos, or?
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's fine. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the approval of consent agenda is passed unanimously. All right, item number 4, completion of records. Okay, are there any questions? We do have a new page for the report to the Board of Commissioners. I think there's just one modification to it. Hopefully that was in the packet that people received in the back. That's page 4.1, where leases executed is checked. And then this page, let's see, 15 of that packet, there's a new addition to the master policy report. Are there any questions from the commission about the master policy report, or any comments, anything you would like clarified?
I have one on the boat launch development.
So what page is that on, please? On the report they should be.
Which is IV.
Okay,
Oh,
got it.
This might be past the report then.
No, I think that's in there. It'd be after page 4, I believe. Professional and personal services.
Right. So did this have to do with the retaining wall that was pulled out that we discovered was in the way?
That, I think, was a portion of it. I'm looking at it now. There was some RFIs and a number of responses. We didn't have them on for construction management through the project because we did that ourselves. And so there are a number of items that we coordinated with them throughout. And that part of the amendment is that. And then they were here and present when we had to do some, I wouldn't even know call it repairs, but after some of those big storms hit, it moved some of the rocks around and stuff, so they'd be out here, and they were here for a day to just manage that, make sure it was done and put back correctly.
Okay.
So those are the services in that contract.
I have a couple
Please.
questions. This one probably either Karen or Mike. On the log handling operations, I noticed year-to-date for 16 of deck loads is like 2,900 versus last year of 500. And then as well as barges are like 500 versus like last year of 0. Is that in line with our budget, what we anticipated, or is that high over our budget, or?
I think simply, I think we're ahead of budget, obviously, in those categories. They may even out over a period of time. The first quarter is not usually indicative of the whole year, but I know we're doing quite well at the log yard, though. Alcan's been very active there. We're in conjunction working with Grant Monroe and we're LLC, so we've been pretty pleased with what's going on at the log yard.
Part of that is, as Mike mentioned, it's a combination of Alcan and Monroe. Before, Monroe had all his logs at property that he leased from the port. Now that's over at the Alcan and Monroe have a joint agreement, so that creates more activity going through our log yard than previously because of those relationship changes. So we no longer have rental revenue from Monroe, but that revenue or that activity now is going to the log yard, so that's bumping that activity up.
Because I noticed in the next page under the loads cumulative that, I mean, March was, I mean, we're at pace greater than any other year
Yeah.
this year, and so that's it's exciting to see.
Yes.
Well, hopefully we can keep it up.
Good.
You know, but there's always changes in the market. It's very volatile commodity. So.
We won't hold you to China's market. Not
You
expecting
can't
you to
control China's
that.
market?
Yeah, not so good.
If I can just bump in right there, since we're on that page, on page 4-6, I see we're reporting Terminal 4, and I think in March for half the year, or half that month, we were in controlling Terminal 4. However, we lease Terminal 4 now to Aero Marine. So does it make sense to continue to report Terminal 4 activities if we have leased that structure to a tenant?
No, that's overlooked. We'll make a correction to the commission.
Well, I think it should have been on this for the month of March, but moving forward, April, I don't see that we need to report that if everyone's in agreement.
And then on your tanker days, I noticed we are starting to lag behind anticipation.
Yeah.
When would you be requesting a modification for like a budget for that, or is it too early to look at that?
I'll go ahead and say it right now. I think that we're going to be down somewhat in the tanker business. I think it has to do with the price of oil. I think it has a lot to do with vessels maybe going overseas, one of the projects that are delayed. But that being said, we have a couple of pretty major repair vessels coming in, I think in July, I believe. So ATC will be here. So I suspect that we'll get a little busier through the year. That we are off to a slow start. There's no denying that.
Karen, do we do budget modifications for those kind of things, or?
No, what we will do is that if, we usually have some forward-looking statements as we do our quarterly financial analysis. And if it's significant, which a year ago it was, then we actually brought to the commission some suggestions for cutting back, expenses and did a forecast. But it's only if it's significant. We're not required by law, like some other municipalities, to go in and do a budget change that gets approved by the commission.
So you don't have to do that?
No.
Okay.
It's good practice, though, as we do quarterly updates, that if we do have huge revenue drops, that we figure out how we're going to address that.
Right.
So I have 2 questions, if you have any further?
I have a question on page 4.9.
Okay. Well, I was on 4.5.
Okay.
Mind if we just move it that way? Don't go by page. So on 4.5, I just wanted to know, how did the Mass Timber Conference go? I see that both Chris and Mike attended that in Portland, Oregon. And then, Mike, you attended the Northwest Marine Terminal Association Puget Sound Port Subcommittee meetings. Are there any takeaways for the commission to know about, how that you gleaned from those different, the conference and the meeting?
I forwarded the minutes to Karen. She may have some, maybe something in her weekly report to you, possibly, but one of the biggest takeaways is that that was a meeting that wouldn't fall in our purview of regularly scheduled Northwest Marine Terminal meetings. They're actually a special subcommittee meeting, but I asked that we center, or actually focus our efforts on stormwater, because those are things that are happening here at this port as well. So you'll see in the minutes that there was some really good discussion. Alex Smith was there, formerly of the Port of Olympia, formerly the Port of Seattle. Now she's heading up the effort in Hanford, and she is very, very well knowledgeable in stormwater. But some of the things that we talked about was actually forming utilities, some of the things that are coming down the road, what we can expect, cost recovery of infrastructure. So we're just trying to gather some information about what other ports are doing. That's the developing a knowledge base with other ports. That's the value of the organization as a whole, actually. So.
One of the interesting things when I read through the minutes that came out across that is several other ports actually have their stormwater is going into a city utility, and so the city, they have different arrangements with whether the city utility is treating it as part of their stormwater requirement and assessing a charge to the port and port customers. And one port actually decided to set up its own stormwater utility where it no longer went to the city. So it provides different examples, and again, it's unique to the property where the infrastructure is of the city, where the infrastructure of the port is at, but there are several different methods that are being used for treating stormwater as a utility and assessing charges to the port or to port customer tenants.
So that brings up the question, how would that potentially work for us if we were to work with the city of Port Angeles and their stormwater system? Is there any potential there? Does it not make any sense?
Don't know. I haven't looked into it enough to make a recommendation one way or the other. I know we have a number of properties that do drain the city of stormwater, storm pipes. We get assessed a stormwater fee, not a really large fee. And then a lot of ours are direct discharge to the harbor, just through port-owned systems. So in that response, we could, whatever, fees to be associated wouldn't necessarily have to go to the level of establishing a utility. It could be a fee within a lease or within the operations.
A usage fee or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we're too early in on our process. We haven't defined which stormwater. We're still working first on the conveyance, and then we'll work on the treatment part of it, so we're too early on. But having these different ideas out there help us for when we're looking at our situation.
Isn't the city's stormwater processing system just right north of here? Or is that something, that huge?
That's a pump station for combined sewer overflows.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have a regional stormwater treatment facility, just a wastewater treatment facility.
Okay. Thank you. And so that Mass Timber Conference, any input there?
We were planning on, at the May 2nd meeting, doing a report on that.
Oh, great.
But
Okay.
just generally speaking, it was a very well-attended conference. I think that the MC actually alluded to the fact that 2 years ago, nobody knew what CLT Mass Timber was, and there was over 500 people attending for that. So it was really well-attended, everywhere from people who are working on the building codes, all the way to folks that are actually trying to make sure that there's a steady timber supply. The Forest Service was there. They're actually co-sponsored. I think that was really a well-done conference. I think that we had the architects there actually showing off some of their projects that are happening up in Vancouver and Seattle, and Portland too. Portland is way ahead of everybody here, I think.
That's too bad.
Made some really nice contacts as far as talking about folks who are actually doing CLT, and we've been in contact with them since we went to the conference. So we're keeping in touch with those folks. So.
They would break up the conference into a track A and track B, so Mike and I were able to split that. I attended most of the building code updates with the architects and the engineers, talking about some of their challenges and what they're doing for code updates. And Mike was able to attend all the other manufacturing issues and timber supply issues. So.
Great. Okay, look forward to that report May 2nd. All right, page 4-6. Any other questions there? Okay. And just flipping through, when's the next?
I just wanted to thank Jerry Ledke on 4-9. I don't know if you guys have got a revised copy of this, but he's now able to put in year-to-date comparison for 2015.
Okay.
So we kind of have a benchmark of seeing what we did last year versus this year. And that's helpful, so thanks for being able to get that put in there. Sir.
And I had a question on that page on the site tiling for John Wayne Marina. It says that there is 2,215 feet, but there's nothing listed above it. Is anything parked in the site ties at John Wayne?
I couldn't tell you what's there right now, but we do occasionally have vessels there, so I can I'll find out more.
So that's more transient.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
We got one on 6B1.2. I think this would be to Chris on the capital projects.
Oh, that's later.
That's
You
later?
jumped way ahead. Yeah, that's one of the, that's not part of the master.
I thought it was part of the master.
No,
It's not?
no, that's
Okay.
capital projects.
Then I've got all my questions answered.
I just am noting that on 413, under John Wayne Marina occupancy, it looks like, other than March, well, the 20 to 29 inch foot slips, that we're doing better than previous years. The 30, 40, and 50 foot slips, we've got better occupancy. That's a good trend.
Yeah, that is a good point. Again, it's a snapshot,
Right.
basically at one day in the
Yeah.
calendar month, so it'll fluctuate.
It's a data point.
You picked the right day then.
It also correlates with news releases just came out from the Northwest Marine Trade Association saying that first quarter boat sales were up some, I want to say 30%.
Yeah.
First time they'd seen an increase in sales in years.
So I met with George Harris and Peter Schrecken of NMTA last week in Seattle, and they showed that this, in 2015, there were, from the Department of Licensing to get a boat, we're up to over 5,000 boats built in Washington State, and in 2006, we were at 10,000, but last year we were at 3,000 and some. So it went from, if you can imagine this graph, it was up at 9,000, 10,000, then dropped in the last year's down to 3,000. Now we're back up to 5. So it's a positive development, but we're only half of where we were in the last economic boom. But the boating and the recreational and the luxury spending usually trails about 2 years behind what the economy's doing. But also, it was an interesting discussion in that they were talking about Seattle is becoming much more urbanized, and we all know that there's the gentrification of the waterways in Seattle that's going on. but also as Seattle residents are mostly in high-rises now, in apartments and in condominiums, they don't have a place to store a boat. And so that's, being in Seattle, that is affecting their ability to sell. Their customers are typically not Seattle citizens anymore. They're people that have backyards that can, or driveways that can store their boat in their driveway. And so they're working on different trends and trying to market to those kind of people and trying to work on covered dry dock boat areas so that, you know, they just are moved into these shelf spots and that are covered that cost $300 a month over there. But interesting trends that they were sharing. But anyway, so that, just to, I'll add that to our discussion. So are there any more questions on the master policy?
I
Okay.
have one
Yes.
question for the commission. We had requested more information on personal service contracts that the executive director signs. And so we included in this packet our selection summary on change orders. We just included the actual change order contract. Does that satisfy the request of the commission? Are there any other direction you want to provide as far as additional information on contracts or?
I appreciated that information being
I think it works for me.
I did as well. I think just, you know, when the contracts are first signed, you know, having that kind of, well, at least knowing the templates of what are included, I think would be helpful.
Okay, and we'll have a work session in the future on our template contract.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So that covers item number 4. So item number 5, early public comment session. Is there anyone that would like to make comments? And Mr. Lenaberry, this is where we're hoping to hear back from you as well, but we'll take you after the other folks. So if you'll, Mr. Richards?
Good afternoon, yes.
Name and city of residence,
I am
please.
Dirkie Richards. I currently live at 702 Las Gazelle in Sequim. I am the Commodore of the Sequim Bay Yacht Club. The official opening of boating season is just a month away. Our opening festivities will be on Saturday, May 7th. And again this year, we're going to be hosting a public open house in the morning down on the docks. We will be promoting it through flyers that you may see around town. We'll also have articles in the papers, on the radio. At this public open house, we will be offering members of the public an opportunity to get out for a test sail on Sequim Bay in a Flying Scotch sailing dinghy. We'll have several of them out of the water. Our chase boat will be out there just in case. But again, we wanted to expand the scope of this so that we attract a wider variety of interests for people who would like to experiment with recreational boating. So we have joined forces with Go Expedition. The owner-operators there in the summer months rent kayaks and stand-up paddleboards. So on Saturday morning, they will also be offering the public a chance, free of charge, to do a test paddle in a kayak or see if they can stay up on a stand-up paddleboard. So if you have any friends, colleagues, children that would enjoy an opportunity to experience recreational boating, come on down. It starts about 10. The morning will run until about 1, and then we'll have our traditional festivities in the afternoon. Thank you. Any questions?
I've got you on my schedule.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? You just need to state the city of residence.
Carol Johnson, Executive Director of NOTAC, Port Angeles. I just wanted to bring to the port's attention that we have some knowledge that the Wild Olympics legislation may come up in the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee sometime in April. I've checked on the internet. It is not scheduled yet, so we don't know that it's going to happen, but NOTAC is going to update the list of committee members on the subcommittee for the forest section of the entire committee. It'll come up to the subcommittee. and we will send them a letter to remind them of what our thoughts are. And basically, the legislation addresses the ecologic, but it does nothing to address the economic issues that will come up as a result of adding significant wilderness to the Olympic National Forest. It's already nearly gone, and this would be almost the last nail in a coffin that right now we don't need when we're looking at trying to get more sustainable supply of timber to the overall economy, save the mills that are existing, and be able to bring on the new product lines that are available with some potential for here on the peninsula, like the CLT. But there's going to be, over time, probably other things that will come up that could be opportunities. But once the timber is designated in wilderness, that it's gone forever. And that is a horrible missed opportunity, both ecologically and economically, because eventually Mother Nature will take care of what we don't. So I will let you know as soon as we hear anything more on that and give you an update on what's going on. Thank you.
Carol, if you could also let us know the committee member names and their contact information, and perhaps send that.
I can't. I'm
to
getting
us, so-
updated. I had them, and then a few of them have changed, so I need to update my
When you
list.
update that, that would be helpful, and then she'll get that to us, and then we can send a comment on also.
Great. I can do
So
that.
last June, that's the committee that I testified before and met with a lot of those senators prior to my testimony. Senator Daines and from Montana and his staff, his chief of staff and his natural resources specialist are definitely people that are concerned about this. Scenic rivers, they are very aware of the ramifications of this kind of legislation, so I can give you their emails, point of contacts, and contact them directly, so if it comes up, they can speak about it potentially during the committee meeting.
Well, and one of the issues that we've pointed out to at least Representative Kilmer when we have met with him, and that's of course on the House side, but it gets both places eventually, the issue of the whole idea that the Forest Service is tasked with managing the national forest, and the Region 6, which is what the Olympic National Forest is part of, is in the process of rewriting a new forest management plan. We've asked for nothing to happen until the Forest Service has a chance to rewrite that plan. The public gets some influence into what happens there. It makes a lot of sense. It's way overdue. It's going to be years before it's done, but it still makes sense to let that process play out as well without throwing additional legislation in, which then hampers their process as well. So, anyway.
Senator Murkowski recently was speaking about, in the Energy and Natural Resources Committee hearing, about her concerns where the U.S. Forest Service prepared their appropriations suggestions, and she felt that they were spending too much money and buying new lands rather than spending the money and managing the lands that they had. And she is the chairperson of that committee. So it'd be
She's the ranking,
yeah.
right, she's the ranking member.
Well, Senator Cantwell's the ranking member on the minority
On the
side.
minority side,
Yeah.
and
so she's the
Murkowski's
chairperson.
on the, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Carol.
Hi, I'm Lucy Andrews. I'm the Executive Director at the Ports Chamber of Commerce, and I'm from Fort Washington. And I just wanted to say, since I'm here at a port meeting, Connie is kind enough to update us on port activities when she's at our meeting, so I just want to reciprocate and invite the port commissioners and the port staff to our upcoming Rainfest celebration. We have 10 days of really fun activities planned, and I'd like to leave a schedule for anybody who wants one.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Linneberry, did you want to speak at this point?
Well, I didn't know. I thought I was going to speak publicly earlier today, but not now, so I don't.
Did you have an opportunity to review the terms?
Well, yeah, well, I guess what I got out of it, out of the discussions this morning was, well, I'm trying to figure out how to get a commitment out of the port in, direction. I guess what I got out of it was the May 20th, is that anything that can be done?
As far as everything, other than we can't control those appraisers that are working on the lease rate, the market lease rate. But everything else, yes, as we shared, it's Ms. Goshen's primary.
Well, if that's the case, then I guess what you could say, maybe then 10 days after the reports are in.
Yeah, 10 days, that'd be great.
Is that,
Yeah.
that makes sense, and that doesn't tie anybody. Okay.
And then we would, by Friday, we would have the area that we're talking about,
Premises.
the premise
Yeah.
description.
Okay, then really what it comes down to, my understanding then, is that Karen and I need to get through this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm concerned about there being conflicts and how to resolve them as we get through. So, as we come up with ideas for the lease and or whatever terms, do we just get them down and then propose them to the commissioners?
What I do is I inform the commissioners individually as we go along, and so that I can get some sense of where each commissioner is at.
Yeah.
And if there is something that winds up being, that I think we're gonna have trouble getting past, maybe we wind up having a meeting with the commission if that's what.
Do we have to bring all
requesting.
3 commissioners together to make a decision like that? That if something
Yeah.
is in just say conflict for that matter?
Well, I think it depends on what level of conflict it raises, Jeff. Okay, and that's what's hard, but ultimately, it's
You understand
their
where I'm
decision.
headed?
I know.
Is to get through it, to get us
Yes.
Correct.
complete.
And generally speaking, she knows our intent and has a proxy to speak on our behalf. If something comes up that's outside of the scope that she understands, then she would have to go back to us. But generally speaking, she is our proxy that is representing us in those negotiations.
Especially in terms of the terms. I mean, she's pretty much knows where we're at in terms of the terms of that. So I think she could pretty much navigate through all those with you.
In our policy, we delegated that authority to the executive director. So she has the authority to do that.
I'm somewhat comfortable with everything. I'm not 100%. I want to be 100% by Friday.
We're getting a lot closer. Yeah, right.
We recorded that, didn't we?
We're making
We got
progress.
that recorded?
Yeah.
Hey, and we got a smile. We got a smile out of him even.
Right.
Amazing.
So you're saying there's a chance.
So let's.
Well, but by Friday, I want to be comfortable. I want to know
Correct.
that we're moving forward and just a way to get rid of the conflicts. That's what I'm mostly worried about. I can't sit on a conflict for 2 weeks, 3 weeks with no answer or.
I recognize, and like I said, if there's something that I'm not comfortable, that I know where each of the commissioners are at, then I will be contacting them to be able to
propose
get
it or
some-
whatever on our
To get a
side.
sense that if there's a conflict within the commission, then that's a different issue of which I'll need to address with the full commission.
Okay. Well, what about getting the first paragraph in a lease done by Friday? Can we do that?
Yeah, that we talked about
Yeah.
earlier.
Was that okay?
Yeah, and in fact, we plan to have a surveyor come out and look at the property so that we can get the exact lines for the map. We will go ahead and provide a description in the map before Friday, but Friday we have a survey person coming, but we can give you some, we'll
But
give you
the-
some before Friday.
Right. If they're gonna come on Friday, well, shouldn't I be involved in that to see what, because if they can change, if they're gonna change the parcels, and if it's a matter of coming out 20 feet to, or go in 20 feet to satisfy a port need or a platypus need, I think that should be addressed with the
Correct,
survey.
and Tanya's gonna put that email together and send something to you. I was just talking to her over lunch about it, that
Okay.
they're making arrangements.
So you wanna define what's there already? Is that, and then,
The key point that we have is where that PMA and harbor line is. We wanna define where that's at that curve where.
yeah, no, I understand
So
that.
so that's the main
Yeah.
piece, and then they're gonna look at a couple of other things. So I think they've got that scheduled for Friday, was my understanding. So we'll get you involved in that.
So then too, can we put those survey marks on the map, on the picture where it's drawn so that it's
After
easy to
it's been
see?
surveyed, yes.
Mhm.
To begin with, we're just gonna do a map that's approximate,
Yes.
so that you have an understanding, and
Yeah.
then we'll follow it up with
With the,
the survey.
yeah, with the GPS coordinates. Okay, so then, between now and Friday, then we should plan to get together a few times, probably.
Yeah. I'm in Seattle on Wednesday. Other than that, I'll work with you to make sure I can meet with you.
So let's plan on tomorrow afternoon,
Okay.
and then let Wednesday go. They shouldn't be that difficult, they just need to get in Thursday.
Okay, yep.
All right,
Thank you.
all right,
Thank you,
thanks.
Judd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judson.
Take care.
Okay. Are there any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, which was item number 10. It's the Small Community Partner Grant Program. So each of the 3 commissioners has a matrix. Holly, is there anything you wanted to add at this point?
No, you mentioned that we might have some questions.
I did.
You were wondering about the one-to-one match.
Oh,
If
yeah,
they
yeah.
fulfilled
Those
that.
were good questions, yeah. Go ahead.
There's 4 that I want to follow up with, just to be certain that they didn't have, because in the policy, it says, monies in the fund should be used for one-to-one matching funds for economic development projects undertaken by communities. Fund monies shall not be used to provide the sole source of financing for projects undertaken by communities. So it's not must, it's a should and a shall. But
Shall kind of does mean must, right? Attorney?
Shall is typically identified as mandatory language.
All right, fine.
The shall was primary, not 50/50. Just shall not be.
Right, yeah, shall not
Yeah.
be the sole source.
Sole, right.
So there are a couple that, because it talks about if there's in-kind donations as well,
Yes.
or in-kind contributions, and some applicants spelled that out really well. But there's 4 that I don't want to say, no, they don't have it, until I follow up with them, just to be certain. So with your guys' average proposed.
So what my questions were to Holly was, so the Port Commission created average proposed funding, which adds up to $65,000. So if each of these proposed amounts for the applicants meets those should, or does meet that it's the shall piece, that this is not the only source of funding,
Right.
then I think we're in compliance with our own policy guidance on the grant.
There's one that I want to check on that it from this application appears that we could be the only source.
Of just cash funding, or are they showing in-kind?
It wasn't overly clear to me. So I
Okay,
want to follow up on that one and a few others. So 4 total that I need to follow up on, just to be certain.
okay. And my other question was that if this was cash funding and the applicant did, and we were providing, say, a one-to-one match, but the total project required an additional amount of funding, do we fund them regardless of their ability to reach the total amount, or do we only fund them once we know conclusively that they have all the funds needed for the project?
Our policy states that we reimburse them once they've expended the funds. It doesn't
Okay.
say whether they've got all the money that they're supposed to receive. So our policy says that we just reimburse after they've paid invoices to vendors and professionals, contractors, whatever. Because there's some that the project might be $20,000, they may only get 15, and so they're gonna make it work with 15, or make it work with less. So, anyhow, that's how our policy is written.
What if they're not able to fund it this year? Can they hold that commitment over to the next year till they get all the funds they need?
We can hold our commitment to them?
Yes.
Well,
Because like, look at the city of Sequim last year.
right.
You know, they were going to do the media,
AV stuff.
AV,
Yeah, Nichol.
and they still haven't installed any of that, but they purchased it and they've been storing it at High Tech. Kind of got around our expectations, I think, a bit, in my mind.
They purchased it though.
They purchased it, but
Right.
And their
it's,
intent is still to do it, they
Right.
they got
Sure.
delayed on the rest of the project, so. I think on some of these items, especially like if it's a vehicle or other capital improvement type
Yeah.
items, that they're difficult, that the nonprofit may not be able to complete that project until it
Right.
has secured other funding.
right.
Therefore, couldn't request it from us until they actually secured all the other funding. And we've not talked about what happens if we have a situation that it may take 1, 2, 3 years to secure all the funding. You know, do we hold that piece open from our perspective? And that just hasn't come up before, so we're open to a policy guidance, you know, on that. It certainly can be handled from an accounting perspective, that it's just, you know, it's a matter of what the commission would, intent is if the intent is to spend it within, you know, 12 months, 24 months, and they're not able to secure the rest of the funding, then that's probably something that we should put in our guidelines, that then they would have to reapply.
We do have it in, it's kind of a more general statement. It says that it is the goal of the port to apply the entire amount of the fund to the economic projects for each fiscal year. That's our goal, but there's not anything after that that stipulates it.
Well, for me, that's what the goal is too. We're kind of putting a shot in the arm for the small projects so that they can get them completed during this year. This is not over a 3-year period. These are for those small projects that the nonprofits are looking to get done. So no, I wouldn't be in favor of carrying it over.
Your thoughts?
Well, I guess it depends if we've already given the money. We don't have a lot of control over it once we give them the money. If they hold on the project after we've given the money,
But we
Don't
reimburse.
We reimburse. There are some instances, and we didn't do this last year, where if they needed the money up front, that we could allow that instead of on a reimbursement situation, but.
It seems
well,
like
they were getting
we'll say
ready.
the van.
Right.
Does the chamber have the funds to go buy the van and then get reimbursed? I don't know. Yes?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So,
I would be more inclined to want to do that on a case-by-case basis, whether we rolled into the next year or not. I wouldn't want to set any hard, fast rules one way or the other, because I think we want to deal with that maybe on a case-by-case basis.
If basically if there's some substantial progress toward it, then
It could be unusual circumstances that make total sense that you need to go on in the next year.
and I think just stating that's the goal, I think is good enough, and it also gives the nonprofit a good lever to get their other funders at the table to support just that little last piece of funding they need to get the larger piece from the Port of Port Angeles, and that there's a potential expiration date on December 31st. So, you know, if you're 95% of the way there, hey, we just need this much more. It's a good tool, fundraising tool to use for the nonprofits. So,
The other question that I had was on the second project listed with the City of Forks and ONRC. They had requested $15,000. And I don't know, I think staff was looking for them to move a little farther on the project, and there might be another line item that we can also contribute some funding on for the project.
In our operating budget, we have money set aside this year for advocacy efforts around timber issues, as well as looking at mass timber, cross-laminated timber. It's in the meeting on May 2nd is when we're going to pull that information together as far as a spending plan toward the budget. There are some, if this was not fully funded through the community partner program, in talking with staff, we feel we could take some of that other budget item, maybe up to, $10,000 to help fund it, because it ties into some of the operating work that staff was looking at doing this year. But we didn't want to take the whole thing out of our budget.
Okay, and that's what I'm concerned about, is making sure that that project is funded, so whatever line item it comes out of is fine.
Okay. Are there any comments, Commissioner Burke or Beauvais, about the average proposed funding? And if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the funding as presented.
I will move to approve the funding as was presented to us, which is an average of the three commissioners' proposals.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll go ahead and read out to everyone what those funding amounts were. Sure. Oh, I would think it'd be during discussion. Okay. Captain Joseph House Foundation, $2,000. City of Forks and ONRC, $4,666.67. City of Sequim, 0. Concerned Citizens of Forks, $7,239.82. Faro Marine Life Center, $3,333.33. Forks Chamber of Commerce, $16,666.67. North Olympic Land Trust, $2,000. Port Angeles Downtown Association, $3,000. Port Angeles Marathon Association, $2,666.67. PA Regional Chamber of Commerce, $3,666.67. Sequim Museum and Arts, $2,766.67. Sequim Dungeness Valley Chamber of Commerce Irrigation Festival for the portable sound system, $7,000. The Answer for Youth, $5,666.67. United Way of Clallam County, $833.33. Veteran of Foreign Wars, $2,160.18. West End Business and Professional Association, $1,333.33. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
I was pleased to see how many applications we got this year compared to last year. The total was a little bit daunting to apply the $65,000 to. The $207,000 was what was applied for. I don't know that we'll be able to come up with any other funding next year, but it's really, for me as a port commissioner, it's gratifying to be able to help some of the nonprofits out there with some of the projects that they're doing.
I think also next year, just so that these entities understand, maybe some background, sharing the range of how much we funded this year, perhaps would be helpful, from 833 is a low to 16,666 is a high, so we don't get as many, tens of thousands of dollar requests, understanding that the likelihood of a lower amount is high typically. So yeah, we had absolutely terrific proposals, and also we received an email from, I don't remember who it was, that emailed, once again?
I don't remember who it was.
She was so moved by the Veteran of Foreign Wars proposal and the fact that they didn't have any computers for those veterans in Forks, that she committed $500 personally for that.
That was Kathy Carlton.
Kathy Carlton, so, Charlton, thank you very much to Kathy. So, yes, they will actually be receiving more than the $2,280 that they requested. It'll be $2,660 in support of that. So I was really pleased to see that and wanted to extend a public thank you to Kathy Charlton. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none? Well,
Thank you.
thank you, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so the next item, I'm going to just call it 6 again. Item planning, general planning, no items. E, capital planning, new business, 2015 capital project report. Chris?
Yes. They got to turn the projection back on to shut themselves
And you
off.
see it was the people from Forks who presented applications were the ones who came forward to hear the results. I'm impressed.
Jeez.
That's not the new system.
This is coming up, we're going to be going back in time a little bit and talk about 2015. The PowerPoint is included in your packet as well. Okay, so going back to 2014, we put this budget together. It was accepted and authorized, or accepted by the Commission in November under Resolution 14-1091. And it looked like this, the capital budget. It was a very aggressive capital budget. It had nearly $4.5 million of port expenditures allocated throughout, plus $2.7 million in federal grants for a total capital budget of $7.2 million. So, and you can see from this slide how those are. Actually, I'll put it over there. I don't know which one's easy for you guys to look at, the Commission. But the largest piece of that puzzle was Marine Terminal. And the largest project by far throughout there was the Terminal 1 redevelopment project. So that was a project that was slated to span over 2 years. 2015 and 2016, so the bulk of, well, half the spending or so is thought to be spent in 2015. And then the next slide here is what actually happened. So what we actually spent, this is a little bit deceiving because we received a $1 million grant from the Clallam County Opportunity Fund that showed up in 2015, even though the work hasn't been done yet. So when you look at those numbers down at the bottom, and it shows only $2 million in port capital spending because that was already offset by an extra $1 million we haven't even got to the project yet. And you see that federal grants, that federal part's not absolutely true because we have that opportunity fund is mixed in with there. But that's not shown on that $1 million. I didn't show it here because it would have made a negative number and the graph got really funky to look at. So
On the previous slide and this slide, you have an administration. Is that for a project or is that G&A?
What it is what gets thrown in there. There's 200,000 flexible projects that shows up in the capital budget under administration, and then throughout the year, typically it's kind of set aside for projects we didn't anticipate or something breaks and we have to go fix it. We have that kind of allocated in the budget. So 200,000 out of that was for unspecified projects.
And also change orders, right?
It could be for change, could be balancing projects that go over budget, under budget, yeah, absolutely.
And then the next slide you show you only spent about 10,000 of it.
Well, no.
In administration, those other budgets could be dispersed amongst the other business lines,
So
such as
yeah.
rental properties. And here's another one I wanted to make special note of. When we did our budget in 2014, we had not yet separated out airport rental properties from rental properties. So you're seeing that, I'm showing it all here because we did that kind of mid-year 2015. So like the CRTC, the design for the Composite Recycling Technology Center is showing up here, even though in 2016 budget it shows up as airport rental properties.
So is it correct that, well, first of all, our contingency fund for our budget wasn't 200,000?
Correct.
Okay, so, but there shows 225.
Well, there was $25,000 of capital expenditures anticipated for administration.
This
So it's something for the building,
Okay.
or sometimes their software upgrades are capitalized, so.
So, and then it went down to 10,000 of actual being spent there. So does that mean that $10,000 was spent on this building, but that 200,000 that was set aside for other projects was dispersed among the different business lines?
That's
Does that
correct.
make
And
sense?
there's a spreadsheet in your packet too that goes line by line through all of the projects. And underneath, at the very bottom, it shows how we allocated flexible projects. It shows we spent $191,891 in flexible projects. And has those projects that are associated with that. There are also two other projects here that were specifically authorized by the commission mid-budget year because we received grant funding for both the Composite Recycling Center and the boat launch, so we proceeded with design when we knew we had those grant funds for capital construction in 2016.
Yeah, I didn't understand how that worked. Will you go through those numbers with me?
Which numbers?
Well, the CRTC and the boat launch ramp, what do those numbers represent there?
Those numbers represent design work. So CRTC, it's shown in your packet in the spreadsheet. Business line 33, which is airport rental properties, 238,000. So that was grant. That was port expenditures that were associated with the design.
Okay, and then $1 million we received from grant funding?
That's correct.
Is that, so that was mostly $1 million from the Opportunity Fund?
Correct.
And then 23,000
From EDA, because we actually started in December.
Okay, and then a negative?
Yeah, that's why I said it made it really awkward, because we received that grant funding for a project even though we hadn't started
Okay.
construction yet.
Now I get it. Okay, that was very,
Right, all the other ones are typically reimbursement based, but we've got that check up front, so it shows up in
Okay.
2015.
now I understand, thank you. Okay.
Okay, and then the boat launch ramp was similar. We received commission authorization to move forward with design even though it wasn't in the budget, just because we received an RCO grant to start construction, and we wanted to start that construction early in the year so it would be ready for opening of halibut season, which is right there. That was the other unbudgeted project. Okay, and then after going through that overall, what was budgeted and what we actually spent, I was going to go through a few of the major projects and just speak briefly on a couple of them. This picture's a little bit fuzzy, but it's for the Terminal 1 redevelopment project. These projects is a $4.5 million contract with Legacy Contracting Incorporated. That contract was signed in August, though they didn't start work until closer to November because of the having to procure all the steel pilings and have them coated and shipped out here. There's a bit of a lead time. And that project is, I have to say, probably 80% complete now. And so here's a project of the typical operation of when they pulled piles out and they had the dock opened up, and they set these new piles in under just their own weight, and then they put a new vibrating head on there, and then they vibrate them into the sediment. Here's a couple pictures of this one 1010 building HVAC upgrade project. It was one that was designed in 2014 and then went into construction in 2015. That was just a picture of the new 40-ton heat pump unit that we installed to upgrade the heating, ventilation, and cooling system there at the 1010 building. And then we got a new mini excavator for our facility maintenance folks to better maintain our grounds, and you can see there's a little mowing attachment on it, so that helps us mow some of the deep ditches and stuff we've been struggling with for years.
Did the HVAC system go in already?
Yeah, it's in.
And keep in mind, Westport is leaving that building.
No, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Great air conditioning on empty building.
It's ready.
That's a reason why we don't want to demise that building as well. Is that building, that HVAC system, does that just serve the?
1010
The 10
portion, yeah.
Yeah.
12,500 square feet portion
Okay.
of the building.
Okay.
Correct,
Yeah.
not the rest of it. Here's just a picture of, we replaced our 2-ton flatbed. Previously, we were using a 1971 Chevrolet or GMC 2-ton flatbed. It is up for auction now, and we recently received our new 2004 International. It had 60,000 miles on it, and we purchased it out of, I believe it was Idaho, and we went down and got it. So it was a good buy, a good price, and right at budget. And then Terminal 1 gangway platform, this is something that we had designed and manufactured here locally. This is in support of our the cruise vessels that come here a couple times, usually 2 ships every other year. And it also can be used for other purposes too. You have to have something like this to deal with the fluctuations in tides as those passengers are getting on and off the cruise vessel.
Is that Lincoln Industrials?
Lincoln Industrial.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Good.
This
Love
is
that
just
local word.
No, you do. Plaza Recycling Technology Center. This is what we did here in 2015. Is we got through the design, and then this is just another picture showing some of the progress where we're at now. This picture on the left shows the exterior of the building in the back, where they're forming up to pour the foundations for the new freezers that will be going in. And inside is just showing some. It's hard to get a good picture when you're talking about interior framing and everything that's going on in it. But this picture was just taken a few weeks ago, so it's not in 2015, but I just show it anyways.
What's the expected completion date or move-in date?
July 3rd.
You think we'll meet it?
Yep, right on schedule right now, unless
Great.
something comes up that we're not anticipating. The other project I think is worth mentioning. It doesn't show up on our capital budget because it's not a capitalized asset that's being created, but we are using our upfront capital improvement fund to fund the project and then look for reimbursements from the other potential liable parties and insurance and remedial action grant. But we spent about $6.9 million on a contract with ERRG to do the remediation of the site. They removed a little over 52,000 tons of soil, and right now we're to a point where we have about approximately $500,000 worth of work to complete the project, and that is typically bringing in material or using stockpile material on site to bring that site back up to grade. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners on the 2015 capital report?
When are we going to be able to get back to the Cape Price site?
We've been working, I had a geotech on site last week to see how the site is performing. The dry weather's really helped us out. So as soon as we're able to get in there and work the site and place some compacted material without having future settlement issues, I'm hoping it's going to be in May that we'll be able to remobilize out, but it really is weather dependent. And we're going to be meeting with, we're going to be meeting with the contractor this week, because a lot of it, there'll be more risk if you start earlier rather than later, just weather dependent, and we got to ensure that if the contractor wants to start early, that they assume that risk, not because in reality, finishing for the port, finishing in August versus June isn't that much difference. So we don't want to put a whole bunch more risk on the port. Say start in May when bad weather could come.
How many more weeks worth of work are still outstanding?
I think it's about 4 to 6 weeks and they'll be done.
And on the chart of the capital projects that you have, it says budget versus actual.
Yes.
It would be helpful, at least for me, to, if there was another column added, to say how much of the project is left or if it's 100% completed. We know how much we've spent, but we don't know what the project is. Because I know some of them are done and some of them are not done, but we can't really
as far as some project lasts multiple years.
This spreadsheet right here covers it, has the percentage
No, spent, no, money
That's the
spent,
percent
not,
Oh.
spent.
yeah.
Oh, not
She's saying,
completed.
yeah, how much of the project is
So
completed.
percent project complete would be beneficial in the next one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
absolutely.
Got a lot going.
We've been busy.
Yeah, there's a lot of projects out there. Come up here for the next item.
Okay, so the next item is Mofiat Nichol Professional Services Agreement, Amendment number 2.
Okay. Yeah, so this amendment is with Mofiat Nichol. They were our consultant that's been doing the bid documents for our security improvements. It's surveillance, lighting, and access control improvements, along with some cybersecurity improvements as well. So we originally had a contract that the commission authorized on March 12th, 2015. This is the second amendment to that agreement. The first amendment was for $10,000, and that was to, back in May, and that was to help us with preparing a grant for the 2015 port security grant. So this has to come back to the commission because the combination of the two amendments go beyond the executive director's authority, because she's only, the executive director is authorized to up to $50,000 or 10% of the original agreement. So $20,000 is more than 10%. So I'm bringing this for your approval. Well, background to that is Mofiat Nichol's original scope of work under the agreement was design, prepare bid documents for the terminal security improvements for $125,000. And in May, we did amendment number 1 for $10,000, increasing that sum up to $135,000. Then during the course of the design work performed under the original scope, additional coordination and project development was identified by both the port and Mofiat Nichol. And I've kind of bulleted those items out. They prepared some specifications for upgrading our radios in case of an emergency. Fiber optic network connection coordination. They've been coordinating a lot with both Wave Business Solutions and our IT consultant. There was some additional consultation over at John Wayne Marina for the access control system and putting 2 different cameras out there that were tuning off the marine terminal. We kind of learned that we could reuse those cameras even though it wasn't specifically written into the grant. They were able to provide those in the plans and specs and upgrade some lighting and tie Terminal 4 into the project as well. So there's about $10,000 in additional work for the consultant. And so in that additional work is also 75% reimbursable by the port security grant. So their original agreement on the design plus this $10,000 will be 75% reimbursable from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So in light of that, the staff recommends the commission authorize the interim executive director to execute amendment number 2, Mofiat Nichol, for an amount not to exceed $10,000. Questions, comments from commissioners?
So we're available for a grant not to exceed $150,000, is that correct?
Oh, that was for so the work that they're designing was Port Security Grant Fiscal Year 2014. And then amendment number 1, they aided us in preparing the grant for the Port Security Grant Program Fiscal Year 2015. So that was that $10,000 amendment, the first one. Is that what you're asking?
No, on the background page, the next to the last paragraph, it says this grant application was successful and the port was awarded $150,000 to fund cybersecurity enhancements.
Right, and that was for 2015 grant. So we were, before that, the 2014 grant program, we were awarded $750,000, I think was close to it. And that did lighting upgrades, access control, surveillance, and there was a cybersecurity assessment that was in that. 2015 grant was implementing some of those that came from the assessment.
But we are eligible for 75% reimbursement.
Correct.
Okay.
But not on that first amendment was not, because they were helping us
Right.
prepare a grant application.
Right.
But the rest of the funds are.
Okay, thank you.
So what lighting have we replaced? I assume these are LED, high efficiency lights that should lower our utility costs in the
Absolutely.
future.
Yeah.
So is it just at the terminal, or are there other?
Terminal 1, Terminal 3, and Terminal 4.
Okay. Okay.
I'd make a motion to authorize the interim executive director to execute amendment number 2 with Mofiat and Nichol for the amount not to exceed $10,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is, let's see, property, no items, marinas, new business, John Wayne Marina, CMRC landowner agreement for Olympia, Oyster restoration. Mr. Wacknitz?
So these things have migrated from Olympia?
They're that tasty, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the Clallam County Marine Resources Committee approached the port about utilizing tidelands or south of John Wayne Marina for the restoration of Olympia oysters. It's the area highlighted here in orange. The port owns 2 parcels, so it's about 7 acres of 2 parcels. And then the adjacent landowner is Wayne Enterprises. So a little background, the CMRC is a citizens-based volunteer committee appointed by Clallam County. It's been in existence since about 1999. Its goal is for the restoration and conservation and education projects throughout the community and the county. Its efforts are coordinated and guided by the Northwest Straits Commission. And this commission is a federally funded organization dedicated to protecting the Northwest Straits region of the Salish Sea. And so recently, in 2012, this CMRC did let's think here, Olympia oyster restoration on some Jamestown Clallam tribes on the south end of Swim Bay. And now they'd like to try a little more effort in the northern section on port property. And it should be noted that the port is a standing member of the CMRC, and I'm the representative for the port on that. And so really their proposal would be to enter into a land use agreement with the port, and this would allow them, and this agreement would run through December of 2017, and it would allow them to initially go out to the site and really determine if there's appropriate habitat for the Olympia oyster. And then in the following year, they'd make 2 to 3 site visits and actually put down seed, what do they call it here? Seed clutches, which would be shells with, I guess, juvenile oysters on them, and they would monitor that over the years. So the environmental impact, the CMRC would be responsible for obtaining any appropriate local, state, or federal permits and approvals prior to conducting this restoration effort. And also, John Wayne Enterprises, I approached John Wayne Enterprises, and they had no objections to this proposal because they are the adjacent landowner. And also, commercial and recreational cell fishing is currently prohibited on these tidelands due to its proximity to the marina. Fiscal impact, really not applicable. Recommended action, staff recommends the Commission authorize the interim executive director to execute the attached landowner agreement for Olympia oyster restoration activities in the Pit Ship Point Cove south of John Wayne Marina with the MRC. Any questions?
So when you talk about 1 foot MLLW, I assume that is mean low, low water?
That's correct.
Okay. I have questions about mitigation restoration points, if there's any way that we can get mitigation restoration points for that to use toward other projects.
I would believe no, because because
Okay.
this is really work being carried out by the MRSC and not the port. And usually mitigation needs to be funded by the port and done by the port.
So if
But
they're
you attend
talking,
those meetings monthly.
Yeah, that's true. That's correct.
if they're talking about 1 foot mean low, low water, and we have an event coming up on May 7th, I think it
Yes.
is, where people are going to be going out in recreational boats, and I know some of those boats are launched from that area, if I'm not mistaken. You know, would we be in trouble or liable or anything if the water was shallow enough and people stepped through some of that, you know, some of those clutch areas?
No, my understanding is that there'll be markers, stakes. I'm not
Okay.
sure how high the elevation it'll be, but they'll be sticking out at each location. Because it's at -1, where the activity is really occurring, that's a fairly low tide. So I'd say 90% of the year, the tide is much farther in. So I don't really think there'd be an impact.
There's always that chance.
Yeah, there's always that chance, yeah, definitely.
And I'm concerned about, you know, future use. I don't know what our future use might be, but once there is something like that in that area, or you know, there's some runoff there too, I don't know what impact during high storms some of that runoff from that stream could have, and according to this, we would have to report that.
Johnson Creek? Yeah, that's Johnson Creek. It's,
Yeah, I guess, yeah, the Marine Resource Committee, they would be responsible for the monitoring of the site. The ports really, we would have to really just allow them access. I don't believe there's really be any issues. And then future development, there's no plans in at least the 5-year capital budget for expansion of the marina. And if there was, there's already habitat at the site, which would require mitigation. So I guess the additional oysters would not really impact the permitting process.
I just wonder what's in it for the port, other than participating in an environmental project.
Oh, it's really just in line with Goal 3 of our new strategic plan.
I looked at the strategic plan, and I really didn't see this in there.
Well, I guess I tried to align it broader as just improving environmental performance.
That's broad.
It's very broad, yeah. And this really just allows, it's a benefit to the environment, and the port there's really little, I guess, financial support. The port has little work the port has to actually conduct. So it's really it's a win-win.
There is a minor economic development tie. The Olympia oyster itself, I've consumed myself at, I believe they served it at Dockside Grill and talked about how it was grown at the Jamestown's Clallam area. So it is kind of a unique food offering that can be made by one of our tenants and others in the area, that it's a native oyster. It's kind of a unique oyster thing that they talked about. So it's
I didn't think
there's
it
a
could
little
be, it can't be harvested here though at this site, correct?
No, harvesting is prohibited because of the proximity to the marina.
Yeah.
And then also, at least for recreational sail fishing, oysters in Washington State need to be over 2.5 inches in length. And that's really to restrict the harvesting of Olympia oysters, because usually they don't grow that large.
okay.
Yeah.
So what about this, during the term of the agreement, the landowner, the port agrees not to intentionally compromise the integrity of the project unless reasonably necessary for landowner's use of the property. How would that be, how could that affect us in the future? I mean, do we have to prove, would we have to prove that it's necessary for the use of our property? Could they try to potentially?
Yeah, so really I see the timeline for this project going is, because this agreement is through 2017.
Okay.
Is they're going to go out this year and see if there's really even appropriate habitat. This agreement allows them to go out and access the site, protects the port, protects CMRC.
Okay.
And then 2017, they would actually go out and put down, I guess, the juvenile oysters and the plots. And then once that's conducted, the port could choose either not to enter into a new agreement for additional monitoring, or we could continue this monitoring. Then they'd go out on an annual basis and just monitor the site and see like how the oysters are doing. Are they thriving? Are they not doing well? Was this really not an appropriate site for the oysters? Or maybe it's a great spot.
Okay.
So it's more like a feasibility study.
Yeah, it's kind of a feasibility study, yeah.
They're putting them in though, aren't they? After
Yeah,
they
definitely.
do the study.
Mhm.
See, it's beyond studying.
It really is.
Well, they're putting in test ones. They're not putting all of them in yet. They're just doing some test ones to see if it will work.
Yeah, at 5 locations. So yeah, it is a test. that go out in each site and really
They're
just
not
count the
planting all
oysters.
the beds yet.
So, and the restoration effort would include about 2 to 3 site visits per year?
That's correct.
By whom? Who? They do that, or are you
That
part of
would be
that?
them, yeah, their staff
Okay.
members. And in the past, it's been an intern,
Okay.
someone that's maybe in their senior year in college would come out and do it.
Does the current habitat that's out there restrict us any now
For the growth of oysters or for the development of the site?
for development?
Definitely, yeah, because we'd have to go, well, just to build that marina, there was quite a process, 10 or 15 years of permitting. And so I would think if you were going to expand the marina to the south,
And that was back when it was easy.
there would be, at least, we'd have to have mitigation at another site. And so I guess really the introduction of oysters just adds to the site. There's already habitat for a multitude of other, animals on that substrate that you'd have to permit for. So I don't think it really changes the dynamic for redevelopment of the site or development of the site.
Okay.
So you don't see any problem long-term, though, for anything that would restrict the port long-term? Till 2017 is just the duration of this agreement, but, I know the Wayne family has talked about a really long dock there someday for larger yachts and trying to dredge and that kind of thing to develop that property even further. Is that, I don't know if they could ever get the permits to do it, certainly not in our long-term vision to do that kind of thing, but would that somehow prohibit the ability for that kind of development to occur?
Not in my opinion. You'd already have to go through so many other hoops.
Yeah, oysters are
the
nothing
oysters would be,
compared
like
to
kind of
it.
insignificant.
Yeah.
You'd already have to do the mitigation for all impacts to the substrate. So
Okay.
there's really no additional mitigation that would be required. And then also, like I said, because the agreement only goes through 2017, we can really see, is this really working for the port and for the public that utilize the tidelands for, going out in their boats and whatnot. And if it doesn't work out, then we can say, this isn't working for the port.
Okay.
I don't know, I personally don't see the benefit to the port, after they are done with this work. I just see it as being a hindrance to things that we might want to do in the future.
What would the hindrance be?
We'd have to work around those oysters if there was any project we wanted to do out there. It might be a
Past
long dock.
2017? We would? Would we? Jesse?
We definitely need to document that the oysters are there. But the actual, if we were going to build a dock or to dredge, the oysters are just such a small portion of, I guess what I'm saying is you'd have to go through jump through the same hoops, whether there's oysters there or not. If you're going to dredge or put in a pile, they're really looking at, I guess it's the Corps, Fish and Wildlife, even the city of Sequim. They're looking at the actual impact to the substrate. And so if there's an oyster there or not, it doesn't really, because it's not listed, it's not an ESA listed species. So I guess that's another way to look at it.
Okay.
So it's no additional
additional mitigation.
hoops we have
Yeah,
to.
we'd really be mitigating for the impact to the substrate, whether the oysters are there or not.
Okay. Does that make you feel better?
Well, I'll at least get this moving. I would motion to authorize the interim executive director to execute attached landowner agreement to the Olympia oyster restoration activities in Pitchip Point Cove, south of John Wayne Marina.
Do I have a second? Hearing none, I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm going to vote no on this because I do not see a benefit to the port, and in fact, I could see the detriment to the port on future projects, and I would only want to sign this if we were to receive some kind of mitigation restoration points for the project.
I guess my only comment would be is, while I understand, Commissioner Beauvais, your concern is sometimes we need to do things that just don't have our own interests in mind, that are in line with other interests. And I think this is one, and I think it does go to our strategic plan a little bit in the environmental stewardship aspect of it, and so I think this does kind of fit in line with our strategic plan, so I am for this.
Well, sometime you'll have to show me where that is in the strategic plan, because I didn't see it at all.
Yeah.
We can vote.
Okay, but Jesse, there's no chance for us to get mitigation credits for this or points?
No, not in my professional opinion.
Okay, okay. So, there's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
No.
And we have 2 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion carries. Thank you, Jesse.
Yep.
Okay, the next item is no items of old business under marinas, airports, new business, construction, General Aviation Apron Phase 3 Resolution Number 16-1127.
Yes, Commissioners, this IFC is related to an approval from the Commission for a WashDOT grant application for our apron project coming up this summer. The 2016 capital budget included $52,000 in port funds for improvements, apron improvements at the airport. As most of you know, this project is an expansion of the existing general aviation and corporate aprons. More frequent use by larger corporate aircrafts and some space movement issues down by the fuel tanks have put this project on the map, and the proposed larger ramp will be able to handle those bigger aircraft and allow for safer operations. Reed Middleton's developed a draft scope for the construction management, Aegis as-built survey, and the independent fee estimate that the FAA is currently reviewing. And they also sent this fine photograph here. I think they were trying to save on the budget. Off here to the left is Wright Brothers parking lot. Wright Brothers is here. And then off to the right is where the block hangers are, a little farther to the right, the terminal. So you can see the general layout and look of the proposed apron. The project is eligible for FAA funding. The port conditionally applied for this WashDOT grant last Friday because that was the deadline. However, a completed application requires the Commission to adopt a resolution that authorizes submittal of the grant application, states that matching funds are available, and indicates your support. The estimated total project cost will be paid for $60,900, local port match, the same amount from the WashDOT grant application if they approve it, and the remainder in federal FAA funds. The amount budgeted for 2016 is a little bit low, $52,000. $60,900 is what we're asking the Commission to approve. So the additional difference, $8,900, is going to come from the flexible projects budget that was previously mentioned today. The primary reason for that overage is the additional unanticipated stormwater detention and water quality work that came up when Reed Middleton was doing the design work. And in January 2016, the Commission approved Amendment 1 to that design work contract to investigate those items. So the recommended action, we ask you to introduce Resolution 16-1127 to complete the WashDOT grant application for the GA Apron Phase 3 project. And if that's unanimous, we also ask you to adopt that resolution today.
Any questions for Jerry?
I have a question. On the area that's not being improved but already asphalt, what
here?
Yeah, what do you do with that transition between the new and the old? Or does it become part of the new, or?
Well, there'll be some markers there to delineate it. However, if it needs to be completely used, those could temporarily be moved, and we could have larger aircraft in there. But basically, that's an extension of the crosswind runway that's fairly thick concrete there, and we will not lose the use of that.
And so was this apron something that the airport general aviation tenants really wanted to see happen?
out at the airport?
Well, I think they support it. It's part of our master plan. There were some items that if we had the money, we probably would have done before this. Things like moving the FBO building, relocating the terminal, that type of thing. But we had about $1 million in entitlement funds that was going to disappear. And this seemed to be the project to do that on because some of the important airport projects like runway resurfacing and that type of thing, the FAA will always fund. But things like aprons and things of that nature, unless we get our enplanements back up with a new airline, we probably won't be able to build new aprons. So it was sort of that decision.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to introduce resolution number 16-1127, a resolution authorizing Washington State Department of Transportation Aviation Division grant application for a general aviation, that is GA, Apron Phase 3 project.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to introduce resolution number 16-1127. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries unanimously. And so now do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 16-1127?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt Commissioner Resolution number 16-1127.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
So next up is airport's old business, no items, new business, quarterly goals, strategic plan accomplishment report.
Good afternoon. I'm here more or less to run the slideshow, and then I have a supporting cast of characters here to help explain much of this. Our goal at the staff level is to come before you each quarter to report on our strategic action items. We spent a little bit of time this morning going through items 3 and 10, all those various items. We'll touch on some of those as well as some items for 1 and 2 as well. Just a brief review, core goals for our strategic plan. I won't read all of these to you, but these are just the standard 4 goals straight out of the brochure there that Commissioner Beauvais has. Improving environmental performance, stakeholder engagement and outreach, just the goals straight out of our plan. So feel free to interrupt, stop me at any point where you have any questions. Under goal number 1, marketing the port and investing in our infrastructure. Obviously one of our key goals is the Marine Trades Industrial Park. Chris and his team did a great job. We had quite a bit of involvement selecting our consultant, Reed Middleton. So we have selected them. Our goal for quarter 2 is to complete our contract with them and begin the work. Continuing on with Marine Trades Industrial Park, we have ongoing discussions with our current tenants, and we're hoping by next quarter to actually start making some commitments with some of those tenants, as well as reaching out to some other potential tenants. One of the other things, Mike has already signed up to attend the Pacific Marine Expo and Trade Show, which will be another opportunity.
And that's in November.
Do some marketing out there as well. A lot of credit again to Chris, Marine T1 development. Contractor has completed the majority of the work. I think Chris said about 80%.
Yeah, we're about 80% complete right now.
And our plan for second quarter is to wait. And hopefully, once the fish windows are taken care of, we'll wrap it up and finish it up in third quarter. Another focus we've talked a lot about is promoting CLT and value-added wood products. As we talked about this morning, Mike and Chris attended an event down in Portland. We'll be presenting that at the meeting in Parks on May 2nd. And Jennifer's doing some guest lecturing over at the University of Washington as well.
Attending, I'm lecturing myself.
I'm trying to give you credit. And then under the Sustainable Harvest Advocacy, we have Jesse attending the Land Trust advisory meetings. We'll continue to work that task force as well as listening to Carol and her great advice. And again, we'll be talking to the commission out in Forks as well.
And I attended my first meeting with that as well, with Jesse, so it was very interesting.
It's a good word.
Moving on under goal 1, marketing and leveraging the CRTC. From an engineering perspective, we actually started turning the dirt. We saw some pictures earlier today, some of the construction that's underway. Plan for next quarter is just continue the construction and hopefully complete by first part of July. In terms of marketing and leveraging CRTC from a business development perspective, Jennifer is just back from the JET show in Paris. She has an upcoming presentation on all of that. And she's working with the staff at CRTC, hiring staff, ordering supplies, ordering equipment, and getting it ready to go. And we'll continue down that line. It looks like April 25th, we'll have a formal report on that.
The trip report and the Q1 report from Bob Larson as well.
Yeah. Goal 1.4 is to acquire strategic new property. We did have one potential real estate purchase that we did analyze, but due to some of the economics involved, we ended up declining on that. Our goal going forward is just continue discussions with owners of strategic properties all up and down Marine Drive or anywhere else that fits in our county. Master plan and environmental assessment out at the airport. In this very room here a few weeks ago, we held a public open house on the master plan. Had quite a bit of turnout, more than I expected. Jared, how many people showed up for the...
Well, there was probably a dozen around there.
So at least a dozen people showed up taking interest in the master plan for the airport.
Good.
I was glad to see the engagement and interest in that. So we'll continue working with Reed Milton and hopefully continue along the lines that leads to an environmental assessment in 2017 that goes as planned. 1.5 is the ongoing saga of the Clallam Seattle Air Service. We thought we had our airline ready to go, so we did some upgrades out of the terminal. We got some new paint, some new carpet, we modeled the bathrooms, got it all spruced up, ready to go, and then Seaport backed out, as we're all aware. Quarter 2, we're still working in that direction. We're still planning on something coming up. I'm not sure exactly what yet. But Chris Rasmussen and his maintenance crew is going to work on the awning and the terminal roof leak to finish sprucing it up out there.
Terminal roof leak, that sounds permanent. It's just a small leak, there's nothing really major.
Just won't go away.
Yeah.
I know previously we had issues, Chris, with the heat there.
Yeah. We
Is
put
that-
a couple of ductless heat pumps in last year,
Great.
so it's in a lot better shape.
And I've noticed a reduction in our heating bill out there as well, much more efficient system.
Great.
Every month I look at our utility bill. We spend about $35,000 a month with the city of Port Angeles on utility bills. And I look at it account by account, and I've been able to track a decline at the airport.
Great. Love that.
I'm sure the city appreciates that.
I know I do.
So as we're talking about airlines, Jerry and his consultant and Karen, everyone's been very active in marketing to additional airlines. We hope to have some news back from some of them in the very near future. Also, Jennifer is working to continue our advocacy efforts to get TSA services, working with Derek Kilmer and his bill. I'm feeling pretty positive. I really think some nuts will come together. And then recently, Jerry started working with Ben Munson from Forecast Inc., and we've identified the possibility of applying for a small community airline grant. And so we're looking at how that might come together to benefit the port.
Okay. Is that that EAS or is that a different one? Okay. SCA. Okay.
So help me out with the small community airline.
Service Development Program.
There we go. That's it.
Okay.
Moving on to goal 2, annual positive cash flow, always near and dear to my heart. 2015 did have positive cash flow. Didn't quite cover all of our depreciation, but at least we had positive cash flow for the year. That's what we budgeted for 2016 as well. And our ongoing goal by 2020 is to be able to cover depreciation with our cash flow from operations.
What's our percentage to that 2020 goal? Are we covering half of the depreciation right now, or 30%, or 80%?
I want to say this last year, 2015, we were more in the 40 to 50 range.
40 to 50% of depreciation?
It will really take some progress with diversification of additional revenue sources. So
To get there.
as a economic initiative with the CRTC and a potential spin-offs from that, things like the Marine Trades Industrial Park will depend whether we can get some grant funding for that infrastructure improvement or not, where we get some funding or what we can for us to cover the beach depreciation. Because we've got more of a return, especially if we can get some, where we get our big difference is where we have some facilities or buildings built, we get a higher return on than if they're just ground leases. And so CRTC itself getting the grant money that we did for that facility, and then we'll have the higher rate coming in from a facility building lease than we do from a ground lease. So it takes a number of those before we start getting the impact on our bottom line. Otherwise, we're dependent on cargo exports and how that varies. Good years, we've got it covered. Years where it slacks off, we don't have it covered until we develop these other revenue sources.
Karen makes a very good point there. From an economic perspective, as you know, Marine Trade Industrial Park has enormous potential for job creation. But how that gets structured, if all we have is a bunch of dirt leases, well, that may create the jobs, but that may not produce a whole lot of income for the port, because those dirt leases typically have fairly low rates. So we're looking at that big picture, and what can we get some grants to build buildings that we can lease out for a higher amount. And we want to go down that road no matter what, because we want the jobs. It's just a question of what kind of economic return are we going to get on that.
So I emailed you that question about the vacant buildings. That were you able to get to the bottom of that?
Yes, so Tanya provided some information on that as far as going back to the master policy report. So, maybe if you want, we can catch up on that after.
Okay.
This presentation.
It goes back to having vacant buildings and maximizing our cash flow. And, we've got, I don't know how many buildings, but getting those, aggressively marketing those and getting those tenants in there will, we have an asset. And even if it is an asset that maybe is not in the best condition, it still is an opportunity to create cash flow for us, and it's, currently not. So to me, that is the low-hanging fruit for us to be able to get some cash flow rather than, and granted, the MTIP, we absolutely need to do that from the jobs perspective, but when we have existing buildings that aren't being leased, we ought to be pursuing that first and foremost, in my view.
We have a couple of, at the last week, or a couple weeks before a work session, when we talked about the aviation leases and lease incentives, a couple ideas came up out of there as far as working with consultants. We're looking at whether to hire a broker and have the properties listed. We need to carefully manage if we're working with consultants and working with the broker, and then how that overlaps and who brings in a customer and what fees are earned. So we're working through that process.
Okay, thanks.
And that ties directly into my next 2 points here. Under 2.2 rental properties, this last quarter we completed 4 new lease agreements with Aero Marine Services. 3 of those were buildings, and the 4th one was Terminal 4. Those 3 leases filled out the remainder of our empty buildings on Marine Drive, so everything we have along Marine Drive is currently full now. So all of our vacancies are limited to stuff like the Airport Industrial Park.
That's great.
So we're making progress in that way. And then to help with the Airport Industrial Park, Karen and Tanya are working together on some GIS analysis and looking at how we can increase our marketing efforts there, and whether it be a commercial broker listing or working with the EDC, a number of different directions that could go, but it's definitely taken a priority.
So 90% occupancy, I brought this up before, is that based upon square footage? Is that based upon number of buildings? How many buildings do we have?
If on that comment section is, we're still working on how we're going to actually do that measurement. We've outreached to some of the other ports to see how they measure their occupancy. And we still need to
It's usually done by square footage is normal industry practice.
For ports or just for commercial?
Commercial, yeah. If you say your occupancy is, 82%, you're taking all the square footage of all your different commercial buildings, and then, what percentage is leased. So if you have one building that's 2,000 square feet, but you have another one that's 100,000, one's leased and the other isn't, is it truly 50% occupied?
It gives you a better perspective on terms of within the building count.
And I'd say we need to look at it two ways, because we also have raw land that we lease out.
Yeah.
So we have vacancies, it's land that has no building square footage associated with it.
In our strategic plan, though, specifically, we identified it by buildings. I mean, that 90% is associated with port buildings, not port properties.
Right.
I don't know the number off the top of my head. I would guess we're probably pretty close to 90% right now, so long as Westport remains in the 1010 building.
That's going to screw it
But
up.
that's going to have a significant impact.
And we do have a brochure for all of our North Airport Industrial Park properties and buildings.
We used to have, Lakeside, Allen Logging, and Interfor that leased land out at the waterfront over at the log yard area, Terminal 5. Those leases have expired. We don't have any renewed interest there, or is that just that property now being used by the log yard?
Getting used by the log yard.
And we're getting additional revenue from the log yard based on that land that they've now taken over? Okay, good.
And that showed in that increase of cumulative log yard
Yeah.
movement.
And at one of the last meetings, you had posed the question, we had part of the former K-Fly site was leased by Grant Monroe, and we had annual lease revenue coming off of that of about $160,000 a year, but then he moved all of his volume down to the log yard. And, which way we're better off? I did some calculations, and at this point, I'd have to say we're better off with him down at the log yard. Because we are now employing our employees and moving his volume through our operations, and we are generating more revenue there than we were just from the lease alone.
Fabulous. I'd love to hear that.
So that's,
great.
I wasn't sure when you raised the question, so I went back and researched it, and we're probably $200,000 better off.
Terrific.
Down there.
That totally makes sense, that, our employees are doing the work instead of his, that we should be getting a lot more revenue for.
Utilizing our employees, our equipment, and keeping our log yards hot and busy.
Great.
Mike's down there every day, and they are not suffering from lack of work.
Great.
Busy as
Thanks
they've
for
been.
researching that. I feel a lot better about it, so appreciate it.
And finally on this page, under occupancy, trying to fill out the airport a little bit. Mel's here has joined us again as usual. We met with Mel and some of his partners in the aviation community, and we're looking at what can we do to offer some incentives for filling up the airport land, whether it's raw land that gets a building built on it, the block hangars that are there empty, some of the stuff that's not necessarily right on the airfield, but could be a supporting service. There's a number of opportunities there, and that effort is taking a little more priority now. We're trying to figure out what those are. Jerry's been in contact with the FAA, trying to get some clarification from them as to exactly what incentives we can and can't offer, and not run afoul of our FAA obligations. So more to come in that in the near future.
Thank you.
2.3, preserve create value investments. One of the changes over the past 6 months or so, or maybe a little bit more than that, is a higher level of financial analysis. I think one of the good examples of that was the T3 headline tide dolphin evaluation. A lot of times we know at a gut level, well, yeah, this is a good thing to do. But from Karen's and my perspective, we're trying to provide a little bit more of that financial analysis. What are the numbers? What was the impact of Grant moving his logs down to the log yard? And so we're trying to incorporate that perspective into a little more of our day-to-day operations here. Leverage resources to attract private dollars. Jennifer was very successful, again, applying for a clean energy fund grant, round 2.
We still don't know if we've gotten it. They have delayed the announcement of that yet again to be determined time, but we're hopeful it's this week.
Hopeful this week with a strong hint that it might be a yes.
That's good enough for now.
It's better than a hint of no.
Yeah.
So not official, but
You
looking
didn't
very
hear,
positive.
don't get your hopes up. Come up with plan B. That's good.
But we're not going to stop there. There's other grant offerings. At an upcoming meeting, we're actually going to have a grant matrix that Chris is going to be presenting that lay out all the various, well, not all, some of the various grants that we could be applying for, and trying to really match those up with potential strategic plan-driven initiatives of, okay, these are the things we want to do. How could some of these grants help us accomplish those goals? One of them in the near future, we know we have a significant need for a new fuel dock down at the Port Angeles Boat Haven. We're going to see if we can't get a recreational boating grant for that to maybe help with that. $700, $750? $750,000 project. Maybe we can get some grant dollars to help pay for that. And then, as I mentioned, beginning development of a grant matrix, matching grant projects with capital projects, and we'll be presenting that to the commission in the near future. I know it's on the calendar, I just don't remember the date off the top of my head. Goal 3, improving environmental performance. At the MPIP, we're looking for dry weather, 6 to 8 weeks worth of.
That was 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6.
Yeah.
To regrade the property. Log pond evaluation. The site work has been completed. Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
No, we had the driller out here. I haven't got the test results back from what if anything they found, and then we'll submit a report to ecology in the second quarter. So the whole idea there is there's administrative, I don't know what you call it, a covenant that we have to establish with ecology. Because when that log pond was filled, it was filled about 15 feet, and so there's likely some contamination down there about 15 feet deep. Not that would restrict what we do for development, but if we do ever have to dig down that deep for any reason, trenching or anything else, we have to treat it a certain way. So it's going to establish kind of those procedures in a covenant with ecology.
That includes if you do pilings and those kind of things?
Not likely if you do pilings, but if you needed to run a deep trench over there for whatever reason, and you're going to be handling that soil, you're going to have people with HAZWOPER training, you're going to have to dispose of it at a landfill that can accept it, those kind of things. So we need to establish that boundary of where those covenants are going to be required.
And continuing on with the Cape Life site, one of our goals is to enter into funding agreements with PLPs for the site. We are in the middle of several potential negotiated settlements. Have a couple, I think, likely settlements on the table. Nothing's finalized at this point. We're still waiting to see documentation. But I'm getting closer to the point of saying I feel comfortable saying we're going to get reimbursed the better part of 100% for our out-of-pocket costs for the environmental remediation. Life to date, we're about $9 million out of our pocket to pay for the work that's been done at the Cape Life site, and between ecology and some of the other potentially valuable partners, I think we're on track to get pretty close to 100% reimbursement. I don't want to commit to that yet, but that's what it's looking like, which is good because we have a lot of other capital cash needs, such as stormwater and PAP development and other things. So that's actually looking a little bit positive from a cash flow perspective. In the past, Karen has talked about, would we have to go out for financing, issue new bonds as early as maybe a year from now. I don't know what that time frame is exactly. I'm feeling a little more comfortable saying we might be able to push that out a little bit now, if some of the things come together like they appear they're going to. So hopefully we can push the debt off just a little bit later. Final item, the Western Harbor cleanup. There's ongoing, and I think it was at the last meeting, Jesse was here talking about some of the work going on there, ecology and acceptance of the white paper. And that's is an ongoing project and will be for a while.
So they have the white paper, though. We're waiting for them to review it.
Is that the white
No,
paper
the
for
white-
quite
Yeah.
over a year and a half?
Right.
But they're closer, we finally got some responses back.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. When was the last time we made contact, and when was the last time they responded?
There's another technical meeting to try to hash out those later this week, I think on Thursday.
Okay.
So it's looking hopeful, that a little bit more back and forth.
Well, some of these agencies don't know when a new project comes in, it's supposed to go on the bottom of the pile, and they keep going like this, so you never raise to.
What made it difficult is they wanted to complete their sediment manual, they were redoing some of the rules and stuff.
The
They
scum
needed
too.
to be farther
Yeah.
along with it before they could respond to certain things, so now that that's, yes, so appropriate named.
Yeah.
Give that person a name.
Continuing on with goal 3, item 3.3 is our stormwater process. We've continued planning. Chris and his team have designed documents about 60% complete. Plan for next quarter is to complete the documents and advertise for bids. I would love to be able to say that we got some grants to help pay for this or some potential money to claim back from somebody. This is just going to be cash out of pocket. It is what it is. Thank you, Ecology. 3.4 is our environmental management system. Our draft plan is about 3/4 of the way complete. And hopefully next quarter we're going to get that completed, circulate for staff review, and then we'll bring it to the commission for review as well. Moving on to our final goal, number 4, customer service measurements. We continue to hold stakeholder input meetings with our various groups, both at the staff level and recently had here at the commission level as well. We're going to continue our outreach and plan some annual surveys. And then we'll be back to the commission here in the next couple of weeks with the advisory committee resolutions. Probably have to work through a couple of meetings to get through all that, but that will fall under that as well. We also plan to partner with other public agencies. As you're aware, we've planned our joint meeting out in Forks. We've reached out to the city and county, or I should say the city of Port Angeles and the county. They have not jumped for joy saying how soon yet, but we're trying. Engaging citizens in port activities continues to be high on Holly's list. She's done a great job with the port pilot, social media, and has put an enormous amount of time and energy into planning the waterfront open house on the 24th. There's just going to be a ton of activities. Holly actually had to leave the meeting there earlier today to take flyers up to the schools, so all the kids at the schools are going to get flyers sent home. So everybody's aware of it. I think it's going to be a great event. We continue to want to advocate for a diversified and skilled workforce in Clallam County. So we're working with CRTC and Municipal College and the EDC. We'll continue to collaborate with them, but for the government, we can't lead this. We can only play a supporting role. Quickly turning to operations, just some miscellaneous updates. On the technology and security area, we completed a cybersecurity risk assessment and 5-year roadmap. We will be coming back to the commission in the future to share that report with you. This is where we brought in Mike Hamilton's team from Critical Informatics, and they did a very detailed study of our entire cybersecurity program and our entire computer network. And had a number of recommendations, and really they helped lay out just what the name says, a 5-year roadmap of here's where you are today, here's some of the things you can do immediately to fix, and as you go forward over the next 5 years, these are the things you need to be planning to do to stay on top of this. We recently finished a installation of a fiber optic connection line from the administration building here to the marine terminal. This was funded 75% with port security grant funds. That gives us a dedicated fiber connection from here to the marine terminal instead of a rather iffy radio connection between 2 antennas on the 2 roofs here. And we actually collect quite a bit of data from the marine terminal, security footage. So if there was a breach, some sort of security event there, we'll be able to go back and do the security footage, things like that. Also using port security grant money, I finished up the network server upgrades. We have all new, latest, greatest state-of-the-art servers, improved security, improved maintenance. So that was our 2 main servers here in this building, as well as our backup server out at the airport. So we are in good shape for a number of years to go. Recently, we conducted a IT continuity of operations study. I don't have the final report back from that yet. I'm expecting it probably tomorrow. We had a gentleman, again, this was port security grant funded, a gentleman who was the lead security consultant for IBM, spent years working in the IBM security realm, and he came and assessed pretty much everything we're doing here. And he's going to have a plan for us of, in the case of a earthquake, natural disaster, lack of power, terrorist attack, whatever the issue is, if our computer system network was to go down, how would we continue operations? How are we going to pay our employees? How are we going to pay vendors? How are we going to continue business in the event of loss of our computer system? Everything we do today is on the computer, from paying bills, paying employees, invoicing customers, and so it's, if we were to lose that system, it has the potential to have a very huge impact on our operations. And so we don't have plans in place and a binder on the shelf that we can go straight to. Oh, wow, that doesn't work anymore. Here we go. This is what we do, and this is how we're going to do it. Turning to the accounting and property management side, we have finished deploying Dynamics SL 2015. It's our new accounting system. A little bit of our financial accounting was delayed first quarter due to this upgrade. We now have finally upgraded 8 years in advance. We languished kind of on the 2007 version for a number of years, and 2011 came around, and they had several versions of that were updates that we never got to. So we leapfrogged over all of those to 2015 and are in pretty good shape now.
How's the reporting for that software? Do you like it?
It is significantly better, and it's 8 years worth of technology improvement.
Right.
Going from basically DOS-looking reports to things that come out in nice and neat in Excel, and you can manipulate them and analyze them further and drill down more. It's a huge leap forward.
Okay.
Tanya is working on some property management software, testing it and finalizing some data conversion. We're actually going to enter the 21st century with some of our property management efforts and have a computer system that helps out there. Just some general processes. We have finally finished design and modification of an online payment system. As of this morning, I got the final email saying that the port now has the ability to take credit card payments online.
Woohoo!
So you click on our website, click on Pay Here, and it'll take you to your account. You can pull up your balance and say Pay Now, and go in and enter your credit card number and make your payment online.
Congratulations.
Yes. That's a huge move.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had to get some of this other stuff done first to support it, but we finally got there.
Good.
It's been a challenge.
That's
The
great.
vendor was extremely non-responsive for a number of months. As you've heard in the news, under Obamacare, there was all this reporting that was required of how many months of coverage did you have for your medical plan. It was a 1065B or a 1065C form that you got that said, okay, these people have these months of coverage. Well, because that was a requirement that had to be out by last month, basically, a lot of the technology vendors were so focused on that and creating that product for their customers, everything else got put on hold for months.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really like to have had this done months ago, but I was kind of at the mercy of a vendor that was more focused on making money off of that software product. Equally, in my world, maybe even bigger, is I have finally finished the conversion of the Port Angeles Boat Haven and Boatyard from a cash-based financial reporting system to an accrual-based system. For decades, basically, they collected a pot of money, whatever cash came in the door, they told us what it was for, but it really didn't lead to accurate financial reporting. You just got a report of what cash came in the door that month, not what sales you made that month. So when you had really good collections, it looks like you got a really good month. Well, that may, there may be a timing difference there between when you made the sale and when you collected the cash. So Masco has been really good to work with. I've gotten a lot of support from them. They've really embraced making some of these improvements, and working with the staff down at Boat Haven to improve the accuracy of our accounting. And that is going to make my job a lot easier when it comes to dealing with the state auditor. That has been one of those kind of touchy subjects that they ask, well, how do you know you got everything if all you can recognize is cash? And I'm going to have more reports I can go back to that are my source documentation that provide much better internal controls to document exactly what's going to happen.
So will Marina tenants be able to pay their mortgage through the online system?
They will for John Wayne Marina, because we do the billing and collecting for John Wayne.
Okay.
At Boat Haven, that's all done through the agent.
Okay.
That's
So will
something
we still have those cash bags that come weekly?
from the red bags from John Wayne?
Yeah, I thought they were blue. Red? Okay, yeah.
They're not now red.
Okay.
And that has a lot of your miscellaneous cash. The majority of the mortgage, we actually collect the form on the check that's mailed into us. Sometimes it gets dropped off there and said, we collect a lot of that ourselves, and now they're going to have the option to pay online. We make that a little bit easier.
How about, we switched over to Umpqua Bank. My world at the nonprofit, we have Umpqua. I'm not pleased, even a little. We're going to switch.
I'd say we've had pretty positive
Have you had a
experience.
positive experience? Okay, good.
They've offered us some investment alternatives to the local government investment pool that pays a little bit better than that. So we've been able to get a little better return on our cash we have in the bank. I worked with them quite a bit with the implementation of employee direct deposit. They were right on top of that. They actually, they did a contract review here a few months ago and identified that they were paying 1 or 2 basis points under what our contract stated. And so they came to us and said, oops, we screwed up, we didn't give you enough money, here's some more. It was a very minor dollar amount, but they've been very proactive in their relationship with us.
Okay.
I've been pleased so far.
No credit card fraud. I've had a terrible time with that. Being in Seattle, that happens.
Cards are through the state program.
Okay.
Except for through the U.S. tax, so we don't have a credit card.
Oh, the purchase card program, yeah.
So we don't have anything credit card wise with it.
But I know we've had more than enough compromise cards. The amount of happening fraud with credit cards has just skyrocketed. Everyone is having those problems.
We've had, on average, 2 a month fraudulent purchases. And everybody still has their cards. I know it's not the staff, and it's just, and it's taking Umpqua a ton of time to respond
It's
and investigate, because I think they're
an
overwhelmed.
exploding issue. It's been further complicated by the fact that recently the credit card industry went through a change and they started mandating a little chip in the card.
Right.
That, if you're a merchant and you want to transfer the risk of, fraudulent charges are paid by the bank, you have to have the infrastructure and the equipment to take the chip cards. A lot of vendors out there have said, those chip card readers are so much more expensive, I'll take the risk. I'm not going to pay thousands of dollars to upgrade my card readers just on the case that there's potentially a fraudulent charge. Because the banks now say, if you don't have the latest, greatest machine that reads those chips, you eat the fraudulent charges now. So there's kind of this laissez-faire attitude in the world that, as a former police officer, I never understood. I mean, I'd go up to local banks and say, hey, your debit card was stolen, and, all I need you to do is sign off on the fact that you're willing to be a victim, and I can go pull store video and find out who the suspects were and maybe arrest some people. Like, no, that's just a cost of doing business.
Yep.
Just, to this day, I don't understand.
That's what I'm hearing. If it's under $15,000, they don't even investigate.
It's a cost of doing business is the way they say it.
So it's always under $15,000.
Means, it shows you how much money they're making.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, very true. So, turning to some upcoming projects to wrap this up. On the technology and security improvement side, as I mentioned, we have this detailed cyber risk assessment and 5-year roadmap. We're going to start deploying some of the recommended improvements. We'll finish up the IT continuity of operations plan. Once that's wrapped up, we're going to then transition from an IT focus to a general business focus continuity of operations plan. So it's one thing to figure out how we're going to work with our computer system down, but okay, if we've had a massive earthquake and this building isn't usable anymore, how are we going to continue operations then? So we're going to kind of transition from just the computer-based to the broad-based operations of how do we keep our marine terminal open, how do we keep the airport open, how do we do what we need to do in event of some sort of catastrophe. And here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to put the finishing touches on the 2016, is it 16 or 7? 16 Port Security Grant Program. We have a couple things in mind of things we'd like to apply for some grant funding for. So we'll see if we can get some more free money from the federal government. Start development of an emergency communication system. Earlier, you approved an amendment for Mofiat-Nichol. Part of the piece in there was some of the help they're doing with us to develop an area-wide radio system where we can actually have a base station up at the airport and use that to communicate not only with our own crew, but with all the other local first responders. That is turning out to be a little bit more of a challenge. We need a FAA-approved radio frequency to use, and in this area, anytime North Atlantic Peninsula, if we want approval for that, they also look at Canada and see if Canada has any objections, and Canada always objects. And so I'm trying to work with Clallam County Emergency Planning. They have a number of basically radio frequencies in their bank, and see if we can maybe get one from them to use. I thought it'd just be really simple, go buy a base station, some radios, and turn them on. It's turned out to be a little more than that.
Well, that improved when they went narrow band from the mid-range band. I had to replace all of my radios for my business because we went narrow band. But that made more available, and I know there were entities who bought up blocks of those, so we should be able to get it.
We should. And finally, off the top of my list is developing our Port Angeles Marina and Boat Yard Management. I'm calling it an RFI at this point, a request for information. Because we know there are a number of potential management models out there, everything from a full lease out to an agent agreement to combination of maybe different people doing different things. Here in the next week or two, I hope to get a request for information out, basically announcing to people that, this date's coming up, we have a need, these are the pieces of the puzzle, tell us what you'd be interested in doing. It's not going to be a full RFP response of, down to the penny they're going to bid on it. But we need to kind of get the lay of the land, find out who the players are and who's interested in doing what. And then once we have kind of a broad brush picture, then moving forward probably with a more detailed RFP. That's all I had. Any questions?
Sounds like we're making great progress.
Yeah,
I appreciate the
excited.
report.
Thank you, John.
Okay, we reviewed the community partner program earlier in the day, at item number 6. So items not on the agenda?
We have,
Oh, sorry, did I miss public comment session? I did. Public comment session. Any yes?
Get my little camera back over here. Double duty.
Carol Johnson as a private citizen of Port Angeles, and I'm just talking about the docks that could potentially be built on John Wayne Marina, or certainly the things that happen on our waterfront. What I find interesting is Jesse said that it took 10-15 years to permit John Wayne Marina. I hope the port watches with great interest on how quickly the Navy may build their dock in the north part of our harbor, along with a dock that would come over a reef system that was artificially built, but apparently has a lot of fish stock in it, according to the scuba divers. And note how quickly the Navy advances their opportunities, so that potentially we can use that in the future to prove how good we can build docks as well, and how quickly we should be able to do that with the Navy's success. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to items not on the agenda.
We have a proposal, or I should say, I've contacted several, did some research on real estate consultants to provide a market lease rate appraisal. This is related to Platypus Marine. And it have a proposal from Peter Matthews, who is well known in the real estate area, and a particular individual doing the appraisal would be Paul Charette. So I have his bio provided for you. He actually is the one who has over decades has done the Port Townsend market rate lease analysis for their boatyard, waterfront, a number of rental properties that they have. And so Tanya and I spoke with him over the phone last week. I asked him to send in a proposal. His schedule is very busy, but he said he'd work us. And there's basically two types of proposal. One's called a restricted, I should say appraisal. One's called a restricted appraisal, and one is called a traditional appraisal. The restricted appraisal, I've got an answer for you.
Thank you.
That the restricted appraisal, the appraiser would provide his analysis and his recommendation, but not necessarily all the supporting documentation. And he said in order to get something done within 5 weeks, he may need to do that as a verbal presentation and then later follow up with a written report. The traditional appraisal includes documentation of all the background that went into that analysis, and it takes more time to put that information in a format to be in a report and is a more comprehensive, written report. So we can approach it on, what I'm suggesting is that we approach it on a two-step basis in order for the timeliness to go ahead and have the Mr. Charette provide restricted appraisal, do the research, come back with his professional opinion on what the market rent lease would be, and this would be focusing on Platypus Marine only as far as ground lease rates for the location of Platypus Marine. And then later follow that up with a written report that includes all the background documentation. I think the report overall will be helpful and serve good context for when we look at Marine Trades Industrial Park. So this appraisal is focused just on the select piece of property and lease terms that Platypus Marine has. And so because of the this item is not something that we had included in our budget, I am recommending that we use our contingency fund money to support the, to provide the budget allocation for this project. And I think because it is something that is important to the ongoing relationship with Platypus Marine and our development there, that it is something that is worthwhile going ahead and doing. So just have the proposal in front of you and look for direction from the commission.
Don't we have some funds under rental properties for appraisals annually?
I do not agree, not something at this level that we
Not at that
budgeted.
level.
So this is really a, I would say, unique effort.
And so is there any daily late fee that would be assessed as?
No, we would have to go look for another appraiser. He's trying to work this into his schedule. He's extremely busy. We felt he was the most qualified. He's the one who had the most experience with courts. And I think when we looked at our location, Port Townsend is would be the closest other port to us that would have any property similar to ours. He would still look at other property in order to get a rental rate.
So
But
is the
being familiar with that, he'd bring some background to it.
Is the appraiser that Mr. Lineberry's working with, I think I heard him say it was the same one that did the appraisal for him previously that valued the property at $200,000 per acre?
Mr. Lineberry had not, before today's meeting, had not disclosed that who he had selected.
It sounded like someone different.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
thought I heard him say it was the same guy as he had before from Colliers. We have that
I'm not
appraisal
sure.
report that he sent us previously. I think that's important to frame the conversation, especially if it is that same guy that compared the property to Forks industrial properties.
Well, that's Mr. Lineberry's person
Yeah.
that, so that's, you know.
Are the two appraisers though talking to each other also?
I would doubt
input?
that. I would doubt that.
No, I think that's the case.
Well,
We
they
received a phone
don't,
call.
there is no professional basis for which
Right.
they should be talking
Right.
to each other.
Right.
So, whether people in the same circles know each other and on the side have a personal call or something,
Mhm.
you know, that's different than a
Right.
professional relationship.
Well, I think it's important that we get our appraiser the copy of that appraisal that was done previously, so we understand some background. The
Yes,
level of,
that we
the
will-
level of expertise or input
Or we
whatever.
will provide that as well as the work that BST Associates performed when they did the study for the outlook for the marine trades. So there's another piece of information we will be providing the consultant.
Okay.
Did he give any idea at all how long it would take to prepare the written background report?
He said at least a couple of extra weeks.
Okay.
Will Mr. Lineberry accept a verbal? I guess when you talk to him tomorrow, if you can find out if that verbal report would be acceptable for him to then accept that as our input for the market lease rate.
Right, and I will ask him about that, and if not, we will have a written report following up. It's just the timeliness of that. He said.
Okay.
I don't think we need to make a motion on this because it's within her prerogative to do this.
And I just wanted some, it doesn't need to be a motion, but just realizing, basically accepting the fact that we'll be using the budget, our contingency funds.
So, but I think it's probably good practice that if we're spending money out of the contingency funds, rather than as a budgeted line item, that we should have a motion
That's
and
fine.
approve
Is
that.
that our policy?
I think it's a good policy to.
We can make
go
a motion
Yeah.
and vote on it anyway.
Do that. Okay.
In order to move forward expeditiously to receive data on land market rates in relation to platypus, I will move to support the use of Kidder Matthews to perform a market lease rate appraisal for an amount not to exceed $10,000 and to use the contingency line item for budget authorization.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good for us to make a motion.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. Yeah.
I would like to, I mean, I think it's a good rule. I'm not sure what's in our policy and what's not in our policy. So I would like to get a better feel for what is our policy. And some of
I
those
wouldn't
things.
want, if someone was really critical, I wouldn't want to hold something up. If you got input from us and then, but in general, my feeling is if it's coming from the contingency budget line item, that it's good practice for transparency's sake that it's approved by the commission.
By a motion.
And if it means we ratify it after it's been done, but you talk to us and you know you have support, then let's go that route too.
Yeah, I'm okay with ratification too.
Okay, yep, I am also. So, items not on the agenda, one other thing is on April 5th, I shared with some of you that I was going to be meeting with a manufacturer in the state that has approximately 500 employees, but across the U.S. 1,000, and talk to them about coming to Port Angeles, but we're competing with South Carolina and Texas. And it was clear that they're getting millions of dollars to go to Texas. That's just being handed to them for equipment and building and free land. So there's no way we can compete with that. And then I let Director Bonlander and working with Chris Green, his number 2, to try to keep them in the state. Try to see what can be done in the state level. But yeah, it's not going to be an option for Port Angeles because they want to own their own property, which once, we can't do anything, can't provide any potential incentives if we don't own the property. Anyway, it was good to have that
Well, in
conversation.
Texas, they have lots of land to give away.
Yeah, and they don't have the no gifting of public funds rules. All right, now, let's see, next special meeting will be April 18th.
And that will be at 9 a.m. We'll hold that as a work session. That's for the commission, bylaws, master policy, rules, and then Pat Jones from Jones Consulting will be here to give an update on what he has gathered for the executive director structure.
And then our next regular meeting is April 25th. And then at this point, the commission will now meet in executive executive session to discuss 4 items concerning the lease of property and 1 item concerning current litigation. Our estimated time is 1 hour. It is now 3:30. We will be coming out of executive session at approximately 4:30, and the commission is not expected to take final action following the executive session. Thank you.